on 10 o'clock, and we are going to do a roll call, starting with Pat over there on the end. Gary is here. Simon? Yeah. Nan is here. Bobby's here. Steve, not yet. Thank you. Okay, so the first item of business is to get progress reports on the projects we have in progress. It's, and I'd like to hear, let's see, evacuation. Bob, do you have anything to report? If you don't have anything to report, that's fine. And if you do, it's very useful to share with the group.
I have very little to report in my head. I have an outline for what we need to do, but that's as far as it's gotten. It's just in my head.
And what we need to do is what?
To write, well, I'm going to call it a booklet on that has information for each neighborhood in the town, the geologic hazards in each neighborhood. And the purpose of this booklet is to accompany the geologic hazards evacuation map that we put together last year.
Okay. Okay. Simon, you're hazard, so you're looking at trying to find faults.
So with the USGS, we do an aerodynamic survey over the Hawthorns, and I think that was probably December 4 or something, and then another survey over the Windy Hill corner of the Neely property and the part of the Rift Valley of the San Andreas that is on the Neely property. I have not yet seen any results from that survey, but hope to do so this week. We will be using those preliminary results to finalize the layout of experiments on the Hawthorns property that is currently scheduled for Saturday, January the 24th. The long-range weather forecast looks stable, so I hope that we will indeed work on that Saturday. There is, if anyone on the committee wished to observe any of that work, I am sure I can facilitate that.
And so what would the secondary survey be?
We plan to collect hand-carried magnetic and gravity data across putative fault traces. We plan to collect one or two very short seismic lines across those traces. We may or may not record some electromagnetic data, and we may again fly a drone just for LiDAR, mostly to demonstrate to the students. Based on our preliminary estimate and working with Bob when we were out there, there's one trace that we think that the USGS mapped Berrocal fault is entirely on Hawthorns, and we can cross that. The next declivity in the topography runs along Sweet Springs Trail at the boundary between the ranch and the Hawthorns. And if the aeromag comes back and confirms that there is a break in the aeromag, a gradient there, then I will reach out to the ranch again and ask if our students are allowed on the PV Ranch common area for another 30, 40 yards across beyond the fence in order to extend our surveys there.
So these are like backpacks they carry, or
a backpack for the magnetometer to get it elevated above sources on your body, yeah. Gravity just on a base plate on the ground. The students will also collect magnetic data with their iPhones or Androids just to show them they can do it. The seismic will be potentially a hammer source, but certainly a Betsy gun firing blanks into the ground.
That'd be fun to watch.
So anybody who would like to be an observer, we would be able to shuttle you up from the Roberts parking lot, or you can walk up as Bob did, or indeed, if you were to walk up Sweet Spring Trail, there is the deer come and go through that fence, and it would be an easy way to access. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Simon. Yeah, I think that would be really interesting to observe. Did you, didn't quite catch, do you think that, were you able to see anything in the data at all initially, immediately?
We don't observe data as it is being acquired. I have not been in contact with Jonathan Glenn, the PI at the USGS, given the government furlough, AGU, the Christmas break, but I have asked one of my TAs to call him this morning.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is very exciting. I'm keeping fingers crossed that you'll have some positive results from the data.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yes, absolutely. Then Pat, the minutes should reflect that Steve is here. Steve is present, so we have all members present.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
you're here.
Okay, next is safety element, and I have nothing to report. I don't think any meetings have been, I'm sorry?
Communications and outreach.
Oh, communication. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Sorry, Pat. Anything on communications at all?
What do you mean by communication?
Pardon?
By communication?
Well, now look at page 3, the addendum.
Item 1.
Oh, okay. I'm in communication with someone to try and arrange it. But I don't want to say who, I don't know. I'm in communication with someone to arrange a talk about Japan, but I don't want to say who, I don't want to jinx it, so let you know. Whoops, if they agree.
Okay, thank you. All right. Safety element. Yeah, the town hasn't scheduled any meetings with anyone who was involved previously in the safety element. Pat and I worked on that 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Mary, do you have any update on safety element timing?
Well, Craig and Rebecca are working hard on the safety element, and I believe that you could contact either of them about whether they feel that there's an adequate amount of information that they have from the Geologic Safety Committee.
Okay.
Whatever you have, make sure that they have and they're incorporating.
Okay, I will talk to Rebecca. I think it's a good.
Yeah, I
suggestion.
think it's prime time for making sure that basically it's in a transition between them working on it and the town working on it.
Okay,
And they're trying to do more than their part. So for financial reasons. So if we can make sure that there's not going to be any surprises when the town looks at it from a geological point of view, I think that would be good.
okay. Will do. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're calling it resilience in Japan. What do you want to call it? Project, Steve and Pat? Steve, your microphone is off. Have anything?
I'm sorry, nothing to report on my part.
No, okay.
Maybe something like lessons on resilience.
Okay. Communication coordination. I'm trying to keep in touch with Darcy and have not reached out to Cotton Shires, to John Wallace. I guess it's the ball's in our court to try to keep the map updating project going. And we need to get his estimate for how much the map updates will cost. So that's up to me. Okay. Is there anything else other people have to report or working on or thinking about?
Well, it's a great list, Nan. I'm really happy reading through it. These are all really worthwhile things to make progress on.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
I have a few
Okay.
thoughts. I'm just glad, I think it's a great list of goals. I'm glad that there's not a deadline on these things, because I don't think I can promise any kind of a deadline, meeting any kind of a deadline, but they're definitely high on my. Oh. Yeah, when we get these things done, it'll be quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, that would be a big step forward to get those neighborhood reports done.
I'm not sure that it's not on the agenda or follow-up. I have now applied to be a member on the good side.
Oh,
Safety or emergency, whatever.
Emergency preparedness, perhaps? Okay. Ah,
And with a hope that given that Cotton Shires is also their consultant, well, that maybe we can find
excellent. Yeah, thank you. I think you are you're going to be the glue that holds Woodside and Portola Valley together. So thank you very much for joining the committee. It's not exactly parallel to this committee because we do have an emergency preparedness committee that we're overlapping with them. Excellent. Okay. Yes, it's very relevant to that agenda item. Okay. Next is once again the 2026 work plan, and I do have a deadline thought.
okay.
We're signed up to make our annual report to the town council on February 25th. So we have one more meeting before that. And I would like to, I don't know, they're supposed to have, what, Mary, 10 minutes or something each? Okay, so it has to be quick. I'd like to put together a short PowerPoint highlighting what we've done in the past year and what we're planning to do. So if anyone has photographs from your projects, I would love to include them. Okay, photographs from Japan, photographs of drones over Hawthorns or whatever. Photographs of favorite spots of the on the emergency evacuation routes that you think will be a problem. All that is relevant, and I can include those. I'll be in touch with you individually later to ask for photos or graphics, anything you have. Okay, so that brings us to what we're calling the addendum to the minutes, which is this blue chart, page 3. And Rita, if you would. Okay, I'd like everyone to take a good look at this. This is my understanding of the priority list of projects that we decided on as a committee in the last meeting in December. And if you have any observations or changes to make, now's the time. So let's just take a minute to look at this. And this was in priority order that the committee decided on.
So Nan, when you say future reports on potential flooding, landsliding and liquefaction under
I-
4,
I can just speak into the microphone.
I am,
Direct, I mean, like this.
I am. Under item 4, you say future reports on potential flooding, landsliding and liquefaction. What do you envision?
I hope eventually to, for the committee to look at all the geologic hazards, not just the ones we've considered so far. So we're looking at faults.
No, I
themselves.
understand all that, but what exactly, because
Oh.
haven't we already mapped out flooding, landsliding and liquefaction?
Nothing is on the, nothing is in the pipeline for the flooding, landslide, liquefaction, but I just wanted,
Well, doesn't the town have maps that show that?
yeah, we do.
So I'm trying to understand what you're envisioning
Well,
in addition to the maps.
well, the town also has fault maps, and we think it's possible we could add to them. So I want to be sure that the information on the maps is as correct as it can be. From time to time.
And what data source will you use to update them?
Good question.
Yeah, that's my question.
I have a few comments. This is my understanding of what item 4 is all about. I think part of it is to just compile a catalog or library of what's available on these things. You asked earlier, does the town have reports on some of this, like landslide and flooding? On the town maps, there's landslide potential, but there's nothing in the town documents about flooding that I'm aware of.
Yeah. yeah,
We,
flood-
we put flooding potential on sort of on the evacuation map, but sent, in a way, we're sort of starting from scratch. Not that nobody knows anything. We haven't really, there's an opportunity to compile what's known. I don't feel that we have to do anything like create something. We just need to, you know, well, I also believe that, tell me if I'm right or wrong, Nan or anybody, there is this desire to get all the geotechnical reports. It's more of, I guess, item number 2, to compile all of those together. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have our own little library of this stuff.
Okay. So, but if we want to add mapping, flooding to the town maps, what's the data source we would use?
For a long time, I've wanted somehow to compile areas that have flooded in the past. Maybe it's a blocked storm drain, or maybe it's just an inadequate, maybe it's an inadequate culvert. You know, whatever it is, where have we had flooding in the past, so we can have historical data, and I would go from there. For
Okay.
liquefaction, there's nothing in the town about liquefaction, nothing on the maps. We don't map with the USGS maps liquefaction susceptibility, but we don't.
Say that last part again. The USGS has it, but we don't.
Well, yeah,
Right.
if you look at the, yeah, you can get,
think it
so
was
that are,
The state geologist actually, I did the work. I'm not sure who published it. It was either the state geological survey or the USGS. But there are maps of the whole state, and they of course include Portola Valley. And those maps were what was used, because there is liquefaction on that's what I meant by flooding, which is not really true, but anyway, liquefaction in flatland seems to coalesce with flooding. I know it's not the same, but that's what we did put. So in our evacuation map, there is some liquefaction data, and that did come from the source that was either the state of California or the USGS.
Right. I remember the maps that you created showed a potential hazard by Searsville Lake, where the pond across the street crosses the road. So, but in terms of historic flooding, is there a record somewhere of
That's,
where in Portola Valley, there were issues?
that's the question. Ladera definitely flooded.
But I mean,
Alpine Road
where's
flooded.
that documented?
Pardon? Alpine Road flooded in 98.
Right, but where's it documented?
Where is the document? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
It's
my
going to take some
question.
sleuthing, I think.
But what data source? You mean newspapers?
I guess we're gonna have to create one. Willowbrook was definitely flooded. The same year that the Alpine Road, the upper part of Alpine Road had all those landslides. Alpine Road became closed. There was a big, I guess, Pineapple Express type storm.
Yeah, that was 1998. That was the biggest flow on record since the USGS put its stream gauge in at the golf course in 1930 by about 20-30%. That was about 7,700 CFS down at the gauge. And that was the by far the highest in the last 100 years. February 2nd, 3rd, 1998.
Do they still have the stream gauge?
Yeah,
Okay, so we can get. stream
something there
gauge
should be
data.
too, probably on
Okay,
our information pages.
so we
Yeah.
can get,
There is,
Start.
that stuff is available online. I mean, I've seen it. I don't have it on tip of my. I've seen data from that.
Right. Well, you can communicate with that stream gauge and have it alert to you directly. We have it set to alarm us when the gauge down there goes over 1,000 CFS. You can talk to all the USGS stream gauges and get them to deliver custom information to you, just on your phone.
so Pat, I think it would be helpful to try to compile, Bob says, all the possible also records we have and then see where we can go from there.
No, I agree. I just don't understand what records are.
Yeah, I
Like
just
the
think
Country Almanac or
I just
something?
don't want the other hazards to get lost. That's all this
Right.
is about.
But
So,
the stream gauge record is a great start.
and Bob, I think that the place I saw a liquefaction map must have been on a map that you distributed.
You know,
And where did that come from?
I took all of that data, I documented it, but I don't have it on the top of my head. But it came from either the USGS or the state of California. There were some maps that they had made. And if you want, I'll give you the references. Can't do it right now.
Because there are some other areas susceptible to liquefaction. But that's the main one down on near where Portola Road turns into Sand Hill Valley. It's a big swale.
Right, but yeah, I mean, that's one is good because it's been documented. It's peer-reviewed information. So that's a different category than people's recollection of what happened over the past several decades.
Yeah, we can talk about how to do this later. I wanted to put the other hazards on the, on our list so that we don't forget them. And if we come across any data for any of these, we should, start collecting.
I was just wondering where that strain gauge was.
The stream gauge? Yeah, it's, if you go down Unipro Serra,
Yeah,
it's about 3/4 of a mile down. On the right, you have to cross the golf course to get into it.
so do we,
It's considerably downstream from Portola Valley, but it's the closest.
so should we have more strain gauges in town?
Stream gauges in town? I don't know. I mean, Palo Alto has added some that they run themselves because they had flooding in that same event. Santa Clara Valley Water District has some. Usually the USGS only puts them in when you can define a federal interest, which usually isn't the case for little headwaters, tributaries, but Well, we're on the creek. That's why we're so alert to what's going on with the flows. And we often wish there was one a little upstream of us instead of, 4 miles downstream. There's
Does
about a 2-hour
Stanford have
lag.
any on
What?
Corte Madera?
What's that?
Does Stanford have any on Corte Madera? That's right through.
Does Stanford have any stream gauges? I don't think Stanford runs stream gauges. They've got that steelhead ladder right across from Zots. There might be a stream gauge there, I suppose, but I don't really know.
How can we find out?
No, probably ask Chris
Or the
Field,
Zots.
or, yeah, I don't know. I've walked over there and looked at it sometimes, what is Zots, because I'm always curious about that, but those things, but I can't tell. It's pretty fenced off. I think they don't want people coming in and bothering the fish if they, or their equipment.
What's your stream? What stream are you on?
Brookside. So it's Corte Madera Creek. And, the steelhead ladder's on Los Troncos Creek. And you guys know they come together, those two come together, where the Web Ranch, stand is.
But Stanford has got to have. a
They,
whole bunch
they
of
would,
stuff.
they would probably have some up in Jasper Ridge for some project or another. I think Nona Chiarello might be a good one to ask about that, because she ran Jasper.
There's one after the USGS one on San Francisco. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's way outside. That's way outside Portola Valley.
Well, it is, but that's the closest one, Simon. I bet that's the same one. It's the one on the golf course.
It's like right near Lake Lagunitas.
You're a little upstream from Lake Lagunita, yeah. That's the one we have set to alarm us when it goes up above 1,000 CFS.
Well, talk about federal, the whole Searsville thing is federal, right? So that's federal interest. USGS should have an interest in making sure that you and I on Puerto Madera Creek are, that we understand our flooding.
Yeah, I don't know if Stanford would agree that Searsville Lake is
A federal
a
concern.
federal. I don't,
Wasn't it done because of the suit with the, that got the attention of the dam and the flooding in East Palo Alto.
oh, okay.
From Searsville.
I think the deal is that Searsville Lake is almost filled up. The sedimentation rates are so rapid in the coast ranges that it filled up in record time. It was built in 1915, and I think for the last several decades, it's been almost full. So it doesn't have much capacity of sediment. So it doesn't have much capacity to modulate the stream flow.
That's
They're-
why they're doing the whole restoration of the entire.
Yeah, they're
creek.
talking about
So,
a
and that's
tunnel,
federal-
a
that's
t-
yeah,
a t-
going over-
well, maybe that's true. You,
That's right, they wanted.
okay. I'm sorry, you know more about that than I do.
Also, so they also said. With the big liquefaction. Evacuate problem. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the plan is to expand the size of Felt Lake to
Oh, yeah,
offset, getting
happen.
rid
Yeah.
of Searsville Lake.
the long-term plan is to reconstruct, our creek. And then to reconstruct San Francisco, so that there's a branch.
Mhm.
Settling ponds all the way down to modulate flooding in.
Mm.
So that was all.
Okay.
And because of it, because of the fact, no safety.
Mm-hmm.
Be taken down.
Yeah. And do they have plans to manage the sediment pulse that would be associated with that? Because that,
That's the, those are
that's,
the
that,
settling ponds
that's
coming
what the
down
plan is
from,
for the,
from,
yeah.
Mosquito Creek. But they're also, the first stage, believe it or not, is our creek. And we haven't heard a word, and I don't know about any strain gauge. I mean, strain gauge is a great question. Didn't know you come through my yard and take away the
Mm-hmm,
house and everything.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It gets very high in that.
Mm.
Well, maybe it would be very helpful to just, I almost don't want to say this because it's going to create another project, which I don't really have time to do, but it would be nice to document where is the town vulnerable to any kind of flooding. Something that I recognize that I was rather surprised about is Ford Field. There's some, especially if something like a giant oak tree were to fall down into a creek and slow down the stream flow, then you can have some temporary flooding. And yeah, any place where the town has relatively flat ground, which the town mostly doesn't have, but there are places. Willowbrook clearly flooded. I'm sure if we come up with a small list, spots, Ford Field would be one of them.
This is pretty interesting. And not very far afield. I appreciate the discussion. I guess we need to take,
Not far afield because we're working on culverts right now. So we should actually know what capacities
Mary, you mentioned
make sort of sense.
Yeah.
you talked about culverts. There's a report that was published by the USGS that where they analyzed culverts and how good they are with resilience to earthquakes, and it was an excellent report. I hope that whoever's working on culverts becomes aware of that document. I can provide that because they clearly showed what culverts survive well and which ones don't. The worst are corrugated steel.
All of ours are corrugated steel. We have nothing but corrugated
Well,
steel.
we've got others. We got concrete boxes. It's not the right word, but it's kind of a rectangular thing. We've got one going, Sausal Creek goes under Portola Road
In a cement.
yeah, and they in an earthquake, they tend to be okay, but they break. It's not like they collapse, but they tend to have to be replaced after the earthquake.
Mm.
we just need a viable emergency route after the. if
Yeah,
we-
it is an interesting question. The more I think about it, Ron Ramey's called me a winter or two ago, one of these wet winters to describe, to show me where he was getting local flooding. It's because of a creek that goes through a culvert underneath that building where the Mexican restaurant is that gets blocked periodically. So it does pop up here and there. And then, Mhm.
Yeah, that's the flip side, Ken. The infrastructure handle pulses of floodwater, not just the streams, but the culverts.
And just, I'm gonna say this before I forget, because I tend to forget things these days. There are no upstream stream gauges, but there might have been around the 1950s, because the USGS put out a network of stream gauges on small streams as this area was getting developed so fast in order to plan for the drainage that, plan the network of culverts and so on. There is a few years of record in the 50s from small headwaters creeks around here that you wouldn't imagine there would have a gauge on. So that might be just useful background context for how they're not ongoing, but it's just a little scrap of how the system behaved.
I think it would be really useful to compile everything we can as background for basically a baseline for going forward. So I guess we need to consider climate change and more intense storms, more intense rainfall. So I think we can expect more flooding rather than less. Then there's always the question of whether you have a temporary blockage, a tree falling or branches falling, versus a more permanent situation of, Pat says that the culvert not being able to handle it.
Or getting clogged with sediment, right?
Beach balls.
Beach
Yeah.
An indirect,
Was out, did you hear that this last storm, he was out there, he got a basketball stuck in his culvert. And he finally found something he could pierce it with on a long pole and get the,
No joke, the beach balls are.
Mary, the little footbridge at Christ Church that crosses Sassel Creek sort of is a very imprecise but interesting stream gauge, because the creek has come all the way up to that little bridge. We don't have records, but it does happen.
Mary, what year was it? Was it 98 when your backyard flooded? I remember that.
Yeah, it probably was. I'm thinking February 2nd, 1998 sounds familiar.
Okay. Not to be precise or anything.
Tim needs the precise one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll revisit this later, but Pat, this were the thoughts behind putting that line in the work plan. Okay, any other thoughts on the work plan? I don't have deadlines assigned. I know some of the committees assign dates for getting projects done. I would like to get everything here finished by the end of the year, later if we can, get on to other things.
I have an embarrassing question. Bob, on project number 4, which is the Black Mountain fault in the terminology?
Oh, that branches off from the San Andreas Fault and it goes across Willowbrook Drive. And
I'm just unable to find that name on a map.
you will only find it on in the Lawson report on map 22. I'll
So,
have to-
and therein is the problem, in simply communicating what we're looking at. Where things are, right?
No, if I can just take maybe 1 minute or less on the Black Mountain Fault. It's a fault that has essentially been ignored in essentially all modern geologic maps. There's no explanation as to why. I have some assumptions as to why. My assumption, working hypothesis, is that it was so, to acknowledge that fault was so contrary to the stepping model that became very popular for how the San Andreas Fault behaved in 1906, that it was like a contradiction. It's like you couldn't have stepping and the Black Mountain Fault. And there was a lot of belief that the stepping model was correct. And so Black Mountain Fault got taken away. But now we know the stepping didn't happen. So it's like, well, then we don't really have a reason to ignore the Black Mountain.
Which Plato, which reference?
It would be in the Lawson report, map number 22.
Andrew Lawson's California earthquake, you know. Map 22.
I think that there's one of the things that is on this list of like the having that booklet that I mentioned earlier about potential neighborhood geologic hazards. I think that in order to make a good booklet, we need to document some of these things like the Baracal Fault and the Black Mountain Fault. And I think that a report on what is known about the Black Mountain Fault is needed.
Bob, are either of those listed in the Quaternary Fault and Fold database?
No,
Baracal, yes. Black Mountain, no.
right. The strange thing is about the Black Mountain Fault, it's mentioned both in the text of the Lawson report as well as being on a map. And yeah, I envision a report that would explain the model of stepping that was used in the 60s and 70s, and then how that doesn't really work anymore. We need to document that and then show the geophysical or the geomorphic evidence for the Black Mountain Fault. That we've talked about that in past geologic meeting. I think documenting all of that is probably essential. And that's just, to me, part of the workload that hopefully we can get done this year.
What sort of level of evidence do you need to get something into the Quaternary Fault and Fold database? Is geomorphic evidence or geophysical evidence sufficient, or do you have to demonstrate offset or?
I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, we have like an 80-foot off right lateral offset. Porta Madera Creek is part of the geophysical, geomorphic evidence of the Black Mountain Fault. I mean, it's right where the map 22 says you see something, and then you see a right lateral offset on the creek. It's about 80 feet.
I would ask somebody affiliated with the USGS if I wanted to know.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe Pat, maybe, but not me.
Russ Kramer, maybe. So Simon, your survey doesn't go far enough to capture.
I'm still looking for map 22 online.
Okay.
Oh, I'll get you a copy.
Yeah, we have copies. We don't have it on.
Yeah.
Get a copy for you. I just thought of something else. The town, the public works director, engineer, probably has, I hope, records of flooding reports that the town has responded to. So that's another set of data.
Who again? Could you repeat that?
Pardon?
Could you repeat that?
I think, and I'm hoping, that the town engineer slash public works director has a copy of the flooding areas that, and flooding spots that the town has responded to. Which won't capture everything, but it will give us, I mean, if there are repeat floods in the same areas, then it's an indication that there may be more problem than just a temporary blockage.
Show this to Simon.
Oh, the eastern.
It's that little thin red one that branches off from the San Andreas Fault.
Oh, got it. Oh, so it is outboard of the Baracal Fault.
Or it may be bridging the
Mm.
Baracal, because
It looks
it's mapped as being in the same place as the Baracal, right? Just to the east here.
South of that, they
South.
branch away again.
But then
It's not like it just merges. It's not something that just connects the San Andreas Fault to the Baracal Fault. It has its own, the southern extension essentially heads to the Kaiser quarry, the big limestone quarry. It goes over there, but the Baracal Fault is, just say, northeast of the Kaiser quarry, whereas the Black Mountain Fault goes to the quarry.
that's the way it's been mapped.
Map 22 is essentially the Santa Cruz. Me?
The public's not hearing you.
Oh, so, map
Looks not-
22 is essentially the Santa Cruz quadrangle in the Lawson report.
We can come back to this. Is there any, I would like to get through this agenda item. So are there any other comments on the work plan? And do you see any problem, anyone has an assignment on here with getting the assignment done this year?
Could I ask a question? So under item 1, I'm charged along with Gary and Simon to work with Darcy to streamline communications. So how would I set that up?
I can have you, you've met Darcy, she came to a meeting, but we can introduce, Mary or I could introduce you to get the process.
You
going.
just go on, she has a schedule, you just,
Show up in her office and say, we need to communicate?
no, she has a site that you can just make an appointment with her at any time.
Yeah, but I guess I don't understand how how I get her to streamline communication. I would just,
Just talk to her about how it's going and what your problems are and what her problems are.
Pat, my recollection from last year is that we had discussed the possibility of putting out occasional newsletters about other earthquakes in the Bay Area that might be of interest or relevance to local residents. And that, so for example, with the most recent activity is the San Ramon cluster. A few years ago, there was a small cluster of earthquakes beneath us right here. I've no idea whether the average town resident would be interested to read a one-pager on the San Ramon cluster and and the question people always ask is, does this herald a future big event? And typically the answer is no. These things come and go. So I think that was part of this communication aspect, just to keep the visibility of the major seismic hazard present in people's minds.
so maybe work with Darcy to, if we prepare fact sheets, to work on the procedure for getting them posted online.
Yeah.
Fact sheets, and then really quick responses if we feel local earthquakes or, if people get concerned when they're shaken. And if we could get something out just immediately.
Yeah, but we won't know if it's a foreshock or not.
Pardon?
We will not know if it's a foreshock.
Or we can just report on.
I mean, we can say there's an earthquake, but we're not going to allay anyone's concerns.
No, you don't know. You don't know what it means. It would be to make it. Our job is to reassure people that it's not important shaking. It's not going to affect them.
I just don't want to reinvent the wheel. You can sign up on a USGS and get a like magnitude.
Maybe 1% of the people do that. But
Right,
on-
but part of, I think what we should do is if there's links to websites that already cover this information, provide those.
And so that was actually a topic that I'm not sure, maybe it is also part of number 1, was to rethink what are the best links to have on the GSC webpage so that people find it easy to find information if they do go there.
sometimes if you go to the webpage, it's really interesting to see the focal mechanism and all that. But people want to know whether the San Andreas is moving or something else has moved. They don't go to, and that page won't tell you. The USGS site won't tell you what the you can see where the epicenter is, but the USGS doesn't say, well, if it's on the San Andreas or it's on, Monte Vista or whatever, but you can say, well, it was on one of the, for instance, we had a, swarm of half a dozen very small earthquakes, twos, maybe up to three, in Woodside a few months ago, earlier last year. And they were off the San Andreas in the, probably on one of the foothills faults. And I think it would be interesting to tell people, well, we have these other faults that produce small earthquakes from time to time that are in the San Andreas system, but it doesn't mean that your house is going to get taken down anytime soon.
Okay, well, I'm not comfortable doing that.
Pardon?
I wouldn't be comfortable asserting something like that.
But you can explain where they are and that they are, where they're located with respect to the secondary faults, if that's where they are.
And
What is our audience here? Isn't it the people who live here and want to save their lives and property if at all possible? And so what they really want to know is what the various areas, exit roads are that are present, and then to try to figure out whether they're currently open. And much of the rest of this is very interesting to people who are want to look farther. But most of the residents will really be looking at how to get in or out of news services or something of that nature. And isn't that what who this is directed at?
my view
Residents?
is that yes, it is for the resident, but that we can see each earthquake that happens as a teaching opportunity, and that one of the objectives of this committee should be to encourage residents to be aware of earthquake hazard, so that it doesn't need to be omnipresent in their minds, but that if once a year they stop and think, did I just put a large, heavy picture above my bed? That's a good thing. Now, I sympathize deeply with Pat's view that we must be very cautious about the messaging, but I think that there is an almost standard rubric available from the USGS that makes statements to the effect that the hazard of a large earthquake happening is always enhanced by any earthquake that has just happened, but that the net probability remains very low. And that we do not have the ability to tell whether any earthquake is a foreshock until after a succeeding larger event has happened. And I think that if we were to craft a couple of sentences like that from existing USGS reports, releases, publications, and simply link each time to the current version of the Bay Area hazard map that says, well, there is a 67% chance of a greater than 6.7 earthquake during the duration of your home mortgage, then I think that we do a service if we simply elevate this in people's consciousness once or twice a year.
So maybe a couple sentences saying what you just said, this standard rubric, but I would say maybe add a link to where the USGS, they talk about how they
Absolutely.
calculate probabilities.
Absolutely. I think the challenge is to find what is the opportunity to elevate people's interest? And I'm not actually sure that a magnitude 3 in San Ramon is that opportunity. I could just ask members of the audience whether they were aware of it, whether they thought that it was of interest, whether it raised any concerns in their own mind. I'm trying to source crowd wisdom.
Interested in a link to, did you feel it? You know, for people to have that on their phone and whatnot, because when I feel it, I go right to that because I'm aware of it. But I think people even with kids in the house would be interested in that, and the kids would be able to write down what they felt, and it turns it into a community thing. And yes, when I put something on the wall or I'm looking at those pictures above your head, I'm thinking about what's going to happen, what's going to fall, who's it going to hit. But more people need to think like that. But yeah, so things like that. Just like, where'd you put your pictures? It's not about feng shui. It's about, possibly the rest of your life. I think, just in my conversations with Darcy, she would be interested in that, and just turns into part of her report or on your website section of the town thing. That's a really fun thing. Did you feel it?
So that doesn't quite capture my uncertainty, though.
I
What is the trigger that raises people's interest and awareness?
I see any of it. I'm different. I see any of it, and where my house is located, I feel some of them. I send a message to Nan. Did you feel that one? But I see anything in the Bay Area. I then go to the website, see what the possibility is, what it might mean to me. Think about my friends in that area and send them messages. So I'm aware more than possibly the next person, but I would be interested in it.
So,
Wait, if I might, one indication of interest is a flurry of posts to PV Forum just after we've had one or more really local earthquakes, and people are trying to figure out what's going on. People are interested once they're shaken, and they'd like to know what's happening.
so the window of opportunity is rather brief. It could be, I haven't seen any reports like that on PV Forum for quite a while now. It's possible that the lead person on Project One could, or the lead two people on Project One could think about preparing in advance for the next time there's a flurry of activity on PV Forum, so that there could be rather quickly a release from the GSC that says, here's what we know, here are links. These things are more common after the latest big rain we just had, whatever it is. And that would also be a way to raise the profile of this committee. But I think that's something that we would have to be proactive about doing in advance, so that it's ready to go in that 48-hour window when people still remember what's happened.
I'm sure you've thought about this, Nan. What are your thoughts on interacting with PV Forum? That's a much more direct way of communicating with a lot of folks than putting something new on the website. I guess you could put something new on the website and then just say in PV Forum, we just posted something on this website, or, I'm sorry.
I think there are two main, as I see it, there are two main ways of getting information out. People, one is PV Forum, and the other is the town newsletter, which comes out periodically. I think maybe it's now, instead of weekly, once every 2 weeks. And that will catch people who aren't on PV Forum if they're signed up for the town bulletins.
So Portola Valley Forum is a social media that not everyone in town is signed up. And as far as an official message from this group, and I think this group is still a Brownette group, something going to the town, you know, the wildfire group sends out messages to, puts it on their, on the website, the town website, and then it gets pushed out to, I don't know who, just people signed up for the town, but it's on the town website. And then on the PV forum, maybe make a suggestion, hey, we posted this earlier, but if it's, you know, you'll start getting messages from me if it's only on the PV forum, because there are a lot of people that are not part of it, but they live here.
Mhm.
And,
I,
Yeah, the PV threads on PV forum tend to last for a few days, maybe a little bit longer if they're really controversial, but there was an opportunity immediately after an event to educate people. And if there is something prepared ahead of time that doesn't address that event, but just in general describes, you know, what people can do to prepare, what they should do, and giving the links, that would be helpful, I think. So you, on PV forum, you have to address the issue of the moment as quickly as possible.
Man, I have some thoughts. I think that the conversation about Project One of streamlining communication has gotten slightly caught up in the weeds. This committee's never published tips or anything like that. And it seems to me like we're just trying to take the baby steps of just getting the infrastructure in place so that we can publish anything. In terms of the details of what gets published, that's to me secondary. It's like, let's just have something where we can do whatever. I mean, when somebody has the inspiration that they think that it has to be published, I don't want to get into a discussion now over what that is. But
That's agenda item 4C.
all right, well, but I think that's what I look at project number one is just getting the infrastructure done.
Probably under project one, but it's specifically.
Okay. Okay.
So getting back to the blue chart, any other thoughts? Have your projects pretty much lined up, set paths? You're feeling yours are not very well defined.
Yeah. Exactly. But they're not just my projects. I'm just one person of many, but I agree with Bob. We should focus on the first step of just getting a procedure set up so we can, anything we want to share with the town, we have a very simple way to share it. So I think once we're down in the weeds, we run the danger of, if we're sending out a report every time there's this tiny earthquake, people are going to overload and just start ignoring it. So we have to be careful how much information we throw at people. And
Okay. Okay, if there's no other discussion about this addendum, then I'd like to have a roll call vote to approve it. As
Propose approve the projects? Is that what the request is? Okay, I guess, are you making the motion? I'll second it. How do we want to do it? I'll make the motion. Let's make it simple. I'll make the motion to approve the proposed projects for 2026.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
I,
Okay, and opposed? Okay. Unanimous. I guess technically Mary was supposed to have a roll call vote on them. It doesn't matter. Okay, all right, let's get on to new business. Rita's been sitting there very patiently. Approved minutes from the December meeting, which minutes include the addendum that we just, so that's easy. The minutes themselves are on page 2. And Pat, as usual, has managed to get everything on one page, which is great. Oh, I see a misspelling. I didn't have it. Rita Combs. Combs, C-O-M-E-S.
So with the amendment of Rita's surname, can we approve the minutes for December?
If everyone is.
I make that motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Yes, Simon seconds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 With the correction of Rita's last.
Minutes are approved. Okay. On to 4B, volunteer resident who worked with our community on infrastructure resilience. So Rita has repeatedly expressed interest in the town infrastructure. She has lost, not in any particular order, water, power, cell phone, landline phone, internet. Not sure there's anything else. Oh, sewer, your sewer works, so, right?
Sewer works. I can't drink the water at home. Well, Rita Comus, Whitney, Westridge. From November to mid-December, I did not have a landline phone for 5 weeks. I had to file 2 FCC reports in order to finally get that done, and got all kinds of calls from the presidents of AT&T. And then they gave me money back and all kinds of stuff. But there have been times where I had no phone for 40 days. And it's not just me spending 12 hours on the phone, but my elderly neighbors that have no way for emergency services because our cell phones hardly work at home. And so if, I have a child and I want to pick up the landline phone, if there's a problem, they know that it's me calling and where my address is. And my neighbors too, that are living, behind the wedge and things like that. And they're different ages. And so we need that landline, and we're paying good money for it. And if I pay money for something, I need it to work, not just spend time on the phone trying to make it work. Christmas Day, I had no electricity till after 6:30 p.m. And yeah, it's a privilege that it's Christmas Day for me, and woe is me, I don't have lights on my tree. But that means that there were a lot of people that were shut in, couldn't get out of their gates because they didn't know how. I mean, I know how to open my thing up and crank it, and I can do that. But I checked on my neighbors to see who was home, but some of them are over 80. They would not have been able to open up their gates and whatnot. So they're kind of trapped at home. And if there was an emergency or they needed something and stuff going bad in the fridge that somebody may have stocked for them, these are real problems. These aren't just third world problems. These are Portola Valley problems, and it happens all the time. So for over the years, I've been like the broken record talking about infrastructure, and I'm not alone with that. And of course, the town has been having lots of changes in staff and financial problems. And it's always, oh, we're going to hire somebody and then they're going to fix it and everything's going to be perfect and your hair's going to be perfect and your teeth are going to be perfect. And this has been going on for years. And that's not, just the recent problems that we've had. It's not going to get fixed on its own if we don't do something. And we have this housing that's coming in. And of course, they have to connect to things, but what are they connecting to? Because all they're going to do when they hook into the line on Westridge for the Wedge project, they're going to be burdening the Westridge water lines. What are they connecting to? We have to offer them. So why not fix things for the residents, for all the town? And when PG&E or AT&T has a truck out there, over the years, I've said to the town, hey, did we know that they were going to be doing that? And they say, oh, no, they just do that. And we shouldn't be allowing people to come into our town without somebody saying something. And so I've put together a plan for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years on some of the things and how we can go about. Because the important thing, everybody here knows about all the utilities, the sewer line, and for someone to connect to the sewer, I mean, if you're on septic and it's fine, fine, you're on septic. No one should have to force you to go to sewer. But if you needed to connect to sewer, you have to pay an outrageous amount of money to connect to that line, if you can connect to that line. And for undergrounding, even though we have an ordinance for undergrounding, you must underground, people come in here and get exceptions. Oh, poor me, I can't do this, and it's going to be a burden. And then the town gives them an exception. And there's something that's on the town council agenda for this Wednesday that kind of also gives people exceptions for a couple of things if they claim that it would be a financial burden. But we can't keep giving exceptions for things that are going to make us more unsafe in the future. And, my list, I sent it to Nan last night, so I won't just read through the list, but earthquake resilience is really important because if there's an earthquake, I had no phone, I had no internet. Who's going to contact me to tell me what's going on? And if they can't get through the road with a bullhorn or something to knock on my door, I don't know anything. I'm trapped with my child and I have to find a way. So there's things that we can do, even the water quality of what happens. And the things that we can do, and this is all about resilience first, and we can design, our things for the worst case hazards, not the average days. Rita, no electricity on Christmas Day. Equity and town-wide benefit improvements serve existing and future residents, not just the people that are spending lots of money to build. Redundancy and decentralization, avoid single points of failure, because we're all in this together. I'm spending 12 hours calling AT&T. My neighbor's spending 10 hours calling. They give up. People just give up, but they still are our neighbors. Environmental stewardship, protect creeks, hillsides, and groundwater. And with the building that we're having, there's all these questions about these creeks, all these creeks that have just popped up. Not really popped up, they've always been there, but we only see them because we're not in a drought today. And so we've seen them, and that changes things for landslides and building bridges and the culverts and everything that was just talked about in this group. Fiscal responsibility. We can't apply for a lot of grants because we haven't done our audits and whatnot, but there's got to be a way that we can go around that and perhaps partner with PG&E, partner with Cal Water to get these projects done instead of Rita calling and Alexa calling and this one calling. And transparency and community input, ongoing public reporting engagement. There are people in this wonderful town that have been saying, hey, let me volunteer, let me help. What can I do? But because of the changes that we've had over, all of these years, we haven't had a chance. And our general plan says that we are a community of volunteers. We are invested in the community. And if you see how much people pay in taxes and for their homes, they are definitely invested in this community. So I'm willing to, I've talked to Darcy about what I'd like to do, and they're going to start redoing the utilities and cable group. I'm not sure if that committee, if those people are still living in town that are on that committee, that were on that committee years ago, if that structure based on our rules of our town, if it still exists. But we have to do something because, I listen to you guys, and if there's an earthquake, we have a real problem with all of our infrastructure. So I'd like to get whatever emergency plan, if you guys have access to the town's emergency plan after an earthquake, and then I can work with Mary, perhaps so we get from Mary or Darcy, there's got to be someplace, a book that says, that somebody grabs and says, this is what we do in our town. And when was that updated last? But whatever I can do in jumping in with Darcy or perhaps that group or anybody else in the community. And when the town staff wants to be part of it, gladly hand it all over to them and work alongside them. But we live here and we've got to get this done. So thank you for giving me some time and what I can do to help you move forward and keep us all safe. You're all residents here.
Well, Rita, thank you very much. And I'm really unhappy about all of your losses of utilities. It's pretty amazing what you've gone through in the last few years. You had mentioned when we talked earlier, so I'm trying to get it back to earthquake resilience, resilience of infrastructure and earthquakes, which is, except for fire, possibly the worst possible case for stressing infrastructure. Oh, you had mentioned scenarios. I think we could give you scenarios to work with. Would that be helpful?
That would be very helpful because, even where my house is, there's so many slopes. And I'd say if some of those slopes went down into those streams, we would then have real compounded issues. My neighbors have been trying to secure the areas around, but all you need is, and I've had to do did you feel it quite a few times, and I usually just send a quick message to Nan, did you feel that one? And she's like, your house is just sensitive. But eventually, something more is going to happen. So yeah, that would be really helpful.
I think it would. Okay, I think we can do that. I think it would focus on. Well, I'm not sure. Have to think about it. But it would be. We have to widen the sort of broaden the perspective from individual lots and individual utilities to what's happening for the whole town. We're responsible for the entire town. Simon?
Could I try and clarify your ask of the committee?
Yes.
And maybe try and cast it in terms of a next agenda item, which is proposed topics for the website, and to ask, and that if we're allowed, and I think you've seen the agenda, I'm sure you've studied it.
Yes.
Whether there are specific items that you think belong on the website that you would like to see prepared. And we could defer your answer if we like until we come to this agenda item. Makes more sense.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't want to hold you up.
Well,
But I appreciate the time.
A way that I think that perhaps
Yeah.
some of your ask fits into this next topic.
Thank you.
Rita, do you have any sense of how widespread these various failures in infrastructure were?
Yeah, I'm the person for my part of Westridge, and I check on my neighbors, and yeah, they were all out and they had given up. A lot of people gave up, and people are in their late 80s and their early 90s, and
That's going to be a concern with earthquake evacuation. I think that people that are older.
well, I
I
have
mean, our
room
house lost.
for 3 people, and they know that they don't have a choice but to get in my car.
We were without power for more than 24 hours as well, starting Christmas Day. But we have solar panels, so it took us a while to figure it out.
So Rita, I want to thank you for what you just did. I know that to put together the time it took you to put together what you wanted to say to bring before this committee was a lot of work. I really appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate everything that you said. I want to second all of the things because my house where I live, we have experienced everything that you have mentioned almost. We have gone seemingly months without a landline in the past. Our little line between the the box on our telephone in our house is very fragile. I wish that it was better. We have not had the cell phone problem that you talk about, but we've had all the others. We definitely have lots of, we do not have solar. We have too many trees. We have lots of power failures in our little part of the town. And yeah, I second all of your concerns. So you're not the only one. Yeah, I'd love to be able to work with you more. Thank you for taking all of the time just to come here and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I sent this to Nan and this, she can distribute it because I am sensitive for the Brown Act. Don't want to just send it to you.
Why don't we put this on the agenda for next month and, everyone will have had a chance to look at your outline.
Okay, thank you.
So, Rita, thank you very, very much for all your work and your persistence and dedication to this project. I think you are, yeah, when I will say Rita is a fencer, and when she decides to take on a project, she really puts herself into it.
Man, I'd like to walk out some of what you just said. We typically try to get it a few days before, we tried to put out the agenda a few days before our meeting, right? Like the week before. And so it seems to me like 1 week or maybe at best 2 weeks before our next could publish Rita's outline so that it's compliant with the Brown Act so that we then have it public and then we can talk about it in the next meeting. Would that be the right procedure?
I can try to do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the suggestion. Good suggestion. Would people look at the agenda if we put it out sort of mid-meeting, 2 weeks before? Gary says yes. Pat, would you?
When
think
is the next meeting? I'm just looking on my calendar. What day is the next meeting? Because I'm going to be out of town for part of that.
Wait, are you going to be out for the next meeting? Or-
No, but I don't know which day the next meeting.
It will be the second Monday of
Right,
February.
but do you know the number?
Thank you.
Okay, I will be returning on the 7th, so I'll be out of town the week before.
Okay, so we'll get the minutes done from this meeting ahead of time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we can do that. I hope.
I don't know. I'm not going to promise, but hopefully.
Okay. Steve, would you look at it? Would you, if we publish, tried to
Yes.
publish the agenda early, would you take? a look?
Definitely.
Okay.
So the idea of publishing it early is so that we can get Rita's plan
Yeah, and have thoughts,
accessible for the Browning.
yeah, and questions, develop questions instead of just looking at something at the meeting or a couple of days ahead of time and not being able to think about it very much. Simon, would that help you? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Bob, for the suggestion. We'll give it a try. Okay. So item C is the last on the agenda. At least we can discuss, if not approve today, topics for our page on the website. And I just took a stab at it. This is the final page. It's on the back of the page with the blue chart. Look at the bottom of the page first. I looked at the Wildfire Preparedness Committee's website, and at the very bottom of their page, they have these 4 buttons. 3 steps for preparedness, wildfire preparedness tips, which they put out periodically. Wildfire presentations, so it's links to other people's presentations, I think, as well as their own laws and regulations.
Mhm.
Okay. And going through there, I thought if we had 4 buttons, I would choose the things highlighted in yellow. Research that we've done, those independent research and maps the committee has put out. Earthquake, I said preparedness is probably really resilience, which includes preparedness as the first step. And then Rita's infrastructure project would fall under that, because infrastructure is part of resilience. Presentations at our meetings, and we've had three that I think are relevant. At the very beginning, when we were getting started in 2022, we had Keith Knudsen from USGS and CGS's Tim Dawson talking about earthquake hazard and risk specifically for us, this area. And then just 1 year ago, exactly a year ago, Jeff Bachhuber from PG&E spoke, and we have that recorded. And in 3 months later, Don Smithson from the Bear Gulch Water District, general manager, spoke about our water system. So I think I would like to get the links to those presentations on our page for sure. And there may be others that aren't specific to Portola Valley, but are relevant that people can think of. And laws and regulations, we can talk about that, but
So to be clear, we do not have a website in the town.
we have a page that doesn't have any information on it other than the current agenda and
So it's like a
basically
stub
a
or a
current agenda.
placeholder.
Pardon, it's basically a blank template.
Hmm.
And we can put on it whatever we like. We just have to tell them what we want. So I started thinking about this last fall, and I thought, oh, it'll be really simple. We just have a few things we'd like to put up. And the more I thought about it, the more complicated it became.
Hmm.
So here's where I am so far. Okay, Steve?
I think this looks great. And one thing I'm not sure I see on here that we've talked about in the past is a sort of a repository of geotechnical reports. I think that I've been, frustrated since I've been on the committee about not having, things are talked about that I can't access regularly. So I think this would be the place just to have a repository of geotechnical reports, USGS reports that are basis for CDMG reports. It could be, there are probably scores of relevant things, and they could just be in a box here. And that would make them much more accessible than they are right now.
Maybe broaden the title for item 4 and include what Steve,
I'm sorry.
broaden the title of number 4 so it would include this repository Steve's suggesting.
Repository. Yeah, just resources, perhaps.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's a better.
I'd like to make a proposal of sorts. The Brown Act tends to slow things down because we have to make it public, but I really like the little format that you've got for our webpage. But it seems to me like we sort of need a couple. I'll start over. In the past meetings, Simon very wisely suggested that we ought to come up with some kind of template for our website kind of information. It seems to me like we probably need not just one template for one type of web page, but perhaps a couple of templates. And when I think of a template and approving a template, I don't want to get so specific. It has to be this color and it has to be this font and it has to be exactly in this place. But I would like to have thought of as guidelines, just kind of meet our needs, make it public, then talk it out, and then hopefully at least approve a guideline as opposed to a set of specific specifications.
My thought was, instead of getting involved in the nitty gritty of designing a website or web page, was just to use what the town has given us.
Well,
And
yeah, I think the easy way to make it just a couple of proposals for templates is to just cut and paste and borrow what's already been done, not reinvent the wheel.
Question. So if we want to post something on the committee website, what's the process? Do we submit it to Darcy? Does the committee have to vote on it first?
I think it
How does that work?
has to go through Darcy first and then, Mary, I think it goes through Darcy first and then goes to, maybe it's Elizabeth who's posting, actual posting.
But does a committee have to vote and say, yes, we should post this information? We just go to Darcy.
Well, I think it needs to be approved by the committee before it goes on the, is that one of your questions?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, I think the committee needs, like, I mean,
But
I
since
wouldn't
we
feel-
only meet once a month, I mean, that just seems incredibly cumbersome. We'll just try it. I
or
guess.
do you want a subcommittee to approve? We could do that.
Oh,
We could set it up so that
no.
three people look at it.
I'll
and-
talk to Darcy.
Yep.
So,
Come from her, you can go to her and say,
Yeah.
this is what I think, and then you can,
Say, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's number one.
It is.
Nan, I think you've done a great job in just trying to come over from the wildfire preparedness webpage. I think that your 4 segments make sense, though I would say that when I go to the wildfire committee webpage and I see 3 steps to preparedness, that's the one I want to click on because I think I can do this in 1 minute or less. And so I wonder whether the earthquake preparedness can become the 3 steps to preparedness, literally, and then link down below. So, and I think that perhaps at this meeting, we could adopt a proposal to have 4 sub-pages. One that would be steps to earthquake preparedness, one that would, and I'd make that the number 1 because I think that's this is for residents, not for us. Number 2 is probably then the research maps and reports. Number 3, the presentations. Number 4, the laws and regulations, right? And I think that if we were to approve that essentially as Nan has it, then that provides a much more robust framework for you, Pat, if you then go to Darcy and say, look, we have these maps and we would like them to go on the website. If they're existing town documents, I can't see any problem with beginning to build out that collection.
Mary?
I just wanted to say there's a precedent going on right now with the historic resource. Because historic resources has a tremendous amount of data and, an enormous number of articles. And they're trying to figure out how to link it to the website. And so that legal process is going to happen as well. The board is probably going to have to look at it, what we can legally have on our website, et cetera. But so I think yours is going to be a lot simpler. But just so you know that you're not the only one struggling with this. And that these, we've got to get on them.
So I'd be willing to make a motion if we're ready for it, that we should ask for the same structure as the Wildfire Preparedness Committee has, that we should ask the town to add 4 more sub-pages that would be called earthquake preparation tips, maps and reports, earthquake presentations, and laws and regulations. And that apart from stealing a better earthquake logo from somewhere else, we can use the same images as on the existing wildfire prep committee. So I think it should be a pause to ask if anybody would like to amend that before we make it a formal motion.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd like, before we do have a formal motion, I'd like to say, so this would be completely separate from the Wildfire Preparedness Committee's page. It would be a
So it would
separate,
be on the Geologic Safety Commission.
right? Yes, it would. And so you're proposing, you like the idea of steps to earthquake preparedness because that's what people are really interested in.
Or earthquake preparedness tip. Might
Which
be a
kind of
good name.
combines those two.
So
Okay, Pat?
I have some thoughts I'd like to add to this. First of all, I think your idea is wonderful. I like your idea of breaking it already down into separate web pages. It seems to me like a workflow that we could work with is if any of us have a desire for what each one of those pages would look like, just a basic format that we give them to you, Nan, and then maybe you could publish them before the next meeting, and then we will have examples, and it'll be out in be compliant with the Brown Act, and then we can see what formats we like or don't like, and hopefully we can agree on something and try to keep it rather simple and not too specific, and then we'll have a framework that we can agree to and work with the town to get it happen.
Would you want a subcommittee?
Well, we sort of have one, but I think it should be open to anybody to just present some formats. If anybody has an inspiration, like, wow, let's make it look this way, then everybody will look at it and we'll either change it or we'll accept it or whatever. And then we'll have our design done in a generic way.
I want to make it look like the Wildfire Preparedness Committee website.
Okay,
I think they've done a great job. I think we can learn from them, borrow from them, plagiarize from them.
and the town of Woodside already has some tables for their geotechnical reports. Seems
So-
like maybe we could use it, we can use their wheel that they invented.
How would you title the second, like geotechnical reports, maps and research, or?
Or just maps and reports that might encourage people to dive in and look. Is there a map with my home on it?
Or would you put it under resources?
Uh, No, I wouldn't.
You put it up there.
I think laws and regulations is very specific. That's specific codes that people don't want to read until they have to.
Okay, so you would keep that.
I would have maps and reports as a separate thing because I think there is a large body of such material.
Which will get bigger with time, as we pull in this stuff from Cotton Shires.
Then there's another question. Where do we put this huge body of resources that we can collect from USGS, CGS, that we would like to make public?
That's a link under maps and reports. It links to
Yeah,
outside
yeah.
agencies or.
And then number 3 would be like geologic hazard and risk presentations.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
On the wildfire page, the only ones I've seen so far are presentations to the committee, though I don't see why there would be a problem in also linking presentations that seem to be particularly useful,
Right, yeah,
even if they're outside things
Yeah.
or talks that have been given elsewhere in town, for example.
yeah.
I don't see a problem with that, but
Yeah.
that's a Brown Act question, not a me question.
Better to have too much than not enough.
Yes,
Trying to be
Though-
selective of what they use.
right. Yeah.
Nan, I'd like to know what we.
Yeah, and I just want to say that if you have all the maps on the regular page, when someone's opening that page, Wi-Fi and stuff is so bad in this town, it'll take forever for it to open and people will just go on to something else. Whereas if you had it on a separate page, the resources, the maps and stuff, so the people, the 5 people that want to go to that on a regular basis, they're the ones that are waiting for it to open. But if you have it on the first page, it'll take forever for it to open. And I just wanted to make a suggestion, if there can be a call out for families, you know, this information is really good, but a lot of people just don't care unless it has something to do with them. But for kids, if there was a call out, like, did you feel it? You know, it's just a nice name. And then maybe a link to a video of like the thing that I had gone to in Lima, Peru, where they had people, you know, it's like there's videos of all these different things. So families with kids or families that don't want to read the nitty gritty can just get a sense of this is an interesting
So-
page.
So I would place that under the earthquake preparedness tips. It could be one of the bullets could be links for family.
That would be good, but they won't go there.
Oh,
They won't do the pull down to get there. And so that's something, if you want to
Well,
just get a,
okay, so, people will only go to the Geologic Safety Committee page in the first place if they're looking for something about earthquakes, right?
yeah, but
And
if you had
so-
a kid that was studying it in school, in elementary school, middle school,
Right.
and they saw all of that stuff, oh, and they see a call out
Okay, so the kids, you would like a fifth button, a kid zone.
or a call out, and I wouldn't call it a kids zone, I would say, you know, some other catchy whatever, so that that parent would hit on it. They probably won't hit on anything else, but if there's something there,
So maybe just a link that says resources for kids that would, on the first
Resources
page.
for family.
for families,
families.
resources for families,
Yeah,
and they
the
would
idea
hit
that it's targeted
what
at
you can do,
families,
something you can do
kids.
today or whatever, or interesting.
Well, so, is it possible, can I share us? Because I need to
sign into
join
the
the
meeting.
Zoom.
No, oh, wait.
No, I need to find your email with your.
It's just unfortunate with all the social media stuff. If somebody goes to that and it's not calling out to them as soon as they land on it, they're not going to then go on to the other parts.
Yeah, and it seems like maybe any maps, the size should be small enough so they load quickly with maybe a link to a full resolution.
Well, it all depends on your internet at home.
Pardon?
It all depends on your internet at home.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. So if that's in a resource folder, only the person that's going to that resource folder for the maps, they're willing to wait for the maps to open. But it's going to drag down the page if it's on the first page.
So Rita, I want to thank you for your suggestion. I want to add to it with, I've done a bit of website design and I have in my library of books to help me do that, a very thin book that can be summarized in one sentence, which is, don't make me think, which is really, that's the title of the book. But what that really means is you want a design where you don't have to think, you just know intuitively, this is what you click on and you're going to get what you want. And I think that's a really great goal for whatever we do to have. It's like if we got it designed so that it's like, oh yeah, that's obvious, that's what I do, it's going to get me what I want, then we're there. What's that going to look like? We'll have to figure it out. Maybe an education for us to figure out how to do it right. But
Yeah,
we'll get there.
A link on how to go to college to be what you are, you know, a career. Just a link to it. You don't have to explain it, but just a link. Because there is a lot involved and, you know, some of the parents might say, oh, those people are just interested in rocks. But to see, you know, the career path, they're like, oh, I need to respect these people. And this is the opportunity for you.
Okay, so just for clarity, right now, the Geologic Safety Committee, I have our webpage up on the screen, and literally we have an about that could probably be clearer, meetings, committee members, etc., but very little there. Whereas if I switch to the wildfire preparedness, which is probably the most analogous to our intent and purpose, they have their minutes and agendas. They have a quick about. I guess I've had some of these tabs were open. So when somebody first comes here, this is what they see. Basically, folded up menus for the things that we have already that are mostly, I would say, almost legal requirements or expectations. And then we have those four nice bullets. And maybe under email, we can add one more tab there, like the email one that says family tips or something, or.
Yeah.
And there we just, here's where we really.
Family
value
tips, they'd
family
open.
tips, okay?
They'd open.
And I think that it's really important that we ask potential users who don't have the same specialist interest and word recognition that we do, right? What will most capture people's attention?
They'll open. They'll hit that one.
So I would like to propose that we make some mock-ups and then we talk about them and hopefully approve it. Maybe we can, because the Brown Act slows everything down, maybe we can get this done by April. April's a long time away, but it's not that far because we have February and March. And I would like to get it done sooner, but things slow down. But I think we can get this done.
And I can send
You have
4
a
links.
motion on the table.
Okay.
I'm sorry to bring it up.
Oh, that's great.
A motion on the table that, and, and, and
Let me,
on the table.
yes, that we were going to have just a tiny bit more discussion of, and I am going to try and offer one more tiny amendment. I am going to propose that we model our website strictly as shown on the Wildfire Preparedness Committee website, that we use the same formatting and templates to capture what the town already has and can most easily adopt, that our top page will look exactly as shown on the screen at present, with the addition beneath email of a tab or a caret that lets us go to a family tips page, that instead of 3 steps to preparedness, it will be called earthquake preparedness tips. We can use the same 3 fingers if no one has a better logo. That the wildfire preparedness tips becomes maps and reports. And I suggest we steal the Google Earth earthquake image as it's simply a circle with a little wiggle inside. That looks like a seismogram. That the 4th tab become earthquake presentations, and the 5th tab remain as laws and regulations.
Could we repeat that? The first one would be, you want 3 steps to earthquake preparedness?
Earthquake
I think just
preparedness.
earthquake preparedness tips,
Earthquake
because
preparedness.
it's not clear to me the wildfire, not the motion, the wildfire prep people have a very clear framework, a national framework for their no, I no longer know which screen I'm on. Sorry. No,
really-
I'm not. I've
You're
got something
showing
else.
that one, but
Yeah, I'm seeing something else.
you have too many screens
I have
open.
too many.
But okay, earthquake preparedness tips would be your first. one,
Yes,
right?
and then
Maps and
at the
reports.
next meeting, we can come back with proposed families beneath each of these 4
But the second one
is maps and reports. I suspect that maps and reports is more likely to get people to click on it.
And the 3rd one, instead of earthquake presentation, should be like geologic hazard and risk presentation.
Okay, geologic hazard presentation.
Or geologic hazard and risk.
I'm trying to keep it short.
Maybe risk is more relevant. for the town.
The town already has the geologic and ground movement potential maps on the website if you go through enough menus to get there. But
Right.
we could have them,
Well,
make them more accessible.
those will go under the maps and reports.
Yeah, I
So-
guess
Okay, and the third one would be, wait, your third,
Very deep.
Well, who, What I would say is, this is a very good template for education of people to the problem of living in an earthquake country. And there's a lot in it and a lot of diversity. What I'm concerned about is that there will be some people, we call them residents, who don't read any of that, just need to be able to escape or shelter in place, depending on the circumstances. They need to see something really simple that tells them how to proceed to evacuate or to shelter in place. They need to see that. They're going to want that. They're not going to want to get the education. They should have gotten that before. I understand it. That's the middle or long-term interest of everybody knowing more about how you live in earthquake country. But there's still going to be lots of people that don't do any of that and still want to know how to save themselves.
So it sounds like Gary is recommending a fifth page graphic that will actually be the first in the list. Something like, my house fell down, what do I do now?
Yeah, well, anyway, it goes for wildfire, and in fact, even perhaps more critical than for earthquake because of the more
So
greater
this is for the
frequency.
person who still has internet after the event.
Yeah.
And they're going to press the button, and what should that button say? What do I do now, or
Yeah, something like that. Well, with earthquakes,
in-
you have more
in-
diversity, different opportunities.
in an emergency,
Wild,
and they could press that button, or after the event, and they would press it? What title do people think would capture that? And that would then go
Right.
to how to evacuate.
Um, Pat already wrote our first earthquake tip, and it's basically what to do before an earthquake, what to do during an earthquake, and what to do after an earthquake on one page with links, many, many, many links. So,
Oh, well, that's great. In that case, this thing is called 3 tips.
yeah,
3 tips for earthquake.
shake or burn.
I had one thought that came up and maybe I shouldn't, but what's great about this, using this model is, first of all, the town activate this and put it on the homepage. And so when you hit the homepage, you would get it. And they can also, what they do with the wildfire preparedness tips is they push them. So they go to everybody who wants to get, not just to the forum, but they go also to the forum. And it goes to all residents who ask for information directly. So that already, because you're using the same model, will make this much more effective for that kind of emergency.
okay, so they're pushed independently as they come out one at a time, the tips, the low preparedness.
And it's not, so Gary, what might we name that first box there?
In an emergency.
In
In an emergency.
Hmm.
Seismic, well, you can say anything you want.
emergency, click here.
Yeah. Yeah, emergency response. And it's actually more relevant for wildfires than for earthquakes
Right.
because there's just a much greater frequency.
Yeah, yes. But so for this motion, we're going to need a first version that we can always change later.
Would be, first is,
And so this, I'd like a sense of the meeting whether they think 5 boxes is too many and whether we should stick to 4. Mary nods at everything I say, so I can't really tell which is better.
I'm trying to figure out a way.
4 is better. Okay,
yeah,
so
to change
therefore, the
title.
first bullet, we just need preparation and urgent response. earthquake preparedness. Earthquake preparation. 3 tips. So Gary, how are we going to get your person to press the button? Do you even think they will come here to the Geologic
It's
Safety
hard to-
Committee?
Yeah.
I think it's. Yes, right, and they could.
And then push it. And that's what you're communicating with Darcy, is we say, if you feel an earthquake, we'd like this to be pushed. Then they'll push it.
So my recommendation then is to return to simply 4 earthquake preparation tips, maps and reports, earthquake presentations, laws and regulations,
What's your fourth one?
or laws and regulations. I guess the third one was geologic hazard presentation. And that way, if
Might
we,
as well leave it that way.
geologic hazard presentation. Pat, you're looking uncomfortable.
I was just trying to rejigger number 1, so it pulled in Gary's stuff.
Well, and I think.
Prepare for earthquake tips.
I think the feeling I'm getting is that after a big earthquake, no one is going to come and drill down to find this.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that the town is going to highlight, and so we don't need to worry so much about that person.
Yeah, the idea is to get residents to have absorb this before.
Just like we've all absorbed.
Long-term goal.
Right.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, you bet.
We've all absorbed 0 to 5, 5 to 30, 30 to 100.
Yeah,
And the fact we're all nodding means we all know what we're talking about right now.
yeah.
We need to do the same for the earthquake. So,
And get them to think about, okay, in my neighborhood, where are the
Well,
pinching points to
so-
evacuate, or where, what will I do to get it?
under the earthquake prep tips, we can have the before, during, after.
Yeah.
And then the after has evacuation routes, maybe maybe the number 1 is turn off the gas, but number
Yeah.
2 will be
Yeah.
evacuation routes. So I think but I hope we could agree on the first 4, this page today.
Yep.
We can then, I would say that Nan has done, her number 4 is already ready to load. Alquist Priolo Building Regulations, Portola Valley Ordinance. Her number 3 is ready to load.
Unless people have other presentations.
Well, we can add more later, right? But
Always there.
those existing ones are ready to load. And I think that we can put your before, during, and after currently as number 2, but come back to that at the next meeting. And number 1, we can certainly kick off with the links to town maps. And then we'll have to drill down a bit more with Bob's help as to what other links to put. And we can begin to think out the schema that will let us put on the trenching reports you shared recently.
So number 3, we're saying geologic hazard preparedness.
Presentations, because that's strictly videos. I understand there are people who like to watch video. I'm not one. It's too short. That isn't, so, okay, so the motion that we adopt this schema, number 1 is earthquake preparation tips, number 2 is maps and reports with a new graphic thing, number 3 is geologic hazard presentations, and number 4, laws and regulations.
Second.
Oh, and that we have the family zone underneath the email there as one of the horizontal bars. Okay, that's my motion.
Second, okay.
You were beaten.
Third, no.
Aye.
Okay. I approve, I accept, whatever. Yes.
Could I make one comment that is other business, but was brought to my mind by the thought of having a resilient presentation in Japan at some time in the future? I took a vacation over the New Year, expecting to escape from geophysics. I went to Mexico City. I was woken from a very deep sleep and jet lag by my phone blaring with a presidential announcement that I should leave my building. And it arrived before the shaking arrived from the Acapulco earthquake. Wow. So
How long before?
I have no idea. It felt like minutes looking for a phone, wondering why I had set an alarm I didn't recognize. Pulling on a pair of pants and then feeling the shake.
Really?
Yes, yes, yes. So the Acapulco earthquake, 400 kilometers away. So there was lots of alerts. Many buildings shook, a few tiles were dislodged. One person died in Mexico City while evacuating. One person died in Acapulco. The most impressive was looking out and seeing people standing on the street corner.
Wow.
People had to respond.
What was the magnitude again?
It was 6.5, 400 kilometers away.
Yeah, I remember.
So it works.
Thank you. All right. Are we
Sure.
adjourned?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Please.
Vote to adjourn? Everyone agree?
Yeah.